Good evening and welcome to our nightly telecast of Just the News, where we give you all of the news that's taken place in the country and around the world in about 10 minutes without, of course, any of your opinions or shouting around that news. Let's get straight to it. I must, of course, like I have been doing over the last few days, issue a trigger warning about this information. Some of it might be very distressing for those of you who are already experiencing some amount of distress or anxiety with the current COVID situation that's happening around the country. Let's get straight to the information today. Many Delhi hospitals have been facing a massive shortage of oxygen. Patients' lives, of course, hanging in the balance. Although right through Thursday, hospitals appealed for their stock of oxygen to be replenished, very often taking to Twitter to do so and asking for help from the state and the central government. Terrible news coming in from the Sir Gangaram Hospital in Delhi. 25 critical patients passed away in 24 hours in just one hospital, according to a report by the Indian Express. The hospital had on Thursday morning said it was running dangerously low on oxygen and had only 1 hour's supply left. The Gangaram Hospital is one of Delhi's top private hospitals, treating more than 500 COVID patients, according to reports. Of them, 142 are on high-flow oxygen support, the hospital had said. The hospital's chairperson, D.S. Rana, has said that while there were indeed a very large number of deaths in 24 hours, for the first time in that hospital, those deaths could not be linked to oxygen shortage. Max Healthcare sent out an SOS message this morning saying they only had 1 hour's oxygen left and they had 700 patients waiting. The hospital tweeted, and I quote, "Less than an hour's oxygen supply at Max Smart Hospital and Max Hospital Saket, awaiting the promised fresh supplies from Inox since 1 a.m. Over 700 patients admitted and in need of immediate assistance," end quote. Less than 2 hours later, the hospital released another statement saying it had received oxygen. Delhi government has sent 2 metric tons of emergency oxygen supply, it had said. The Indian Air Force has been pressed into action on Friday. It has begun airlifting empty oxygen tankers from their place of use to fly them to the filling stations across the country to speed up the distribution of oxygen. As part of this operation, the C-17 and IL-76 aircraft of the Indian Air Force airlifted 2 empty oxygen containers, and one IL-76 aircraft airlifted a container to Panagra yesterday. It's of course not clear right now on whether these tankers, once filled, will also be airlifted back to their destination or will they have to travel by road. The Indian Air Force has carried out several sorties of airlift of oxygen containers, cylinders, essential medical equipment required to set up COVID hospitals and facilities to deal with the surge of infections. The aircrafts have been kept on standby to cater to additional workload when it arises. In the meantime, the Telangana government, with the help of the Indian Air Force aircraft, have airlifted 9 empty oxygen tankers to Odisha plants on Friday to procure liquid oxygen for the state. The tankers will return by road and will bring the state 150 metric tons of liquid oxygen by the 27th of April. In the meantime, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh have requested the Indian Railways to transport oxygen tankers from various plants across the country to their respective states. UP has requisitioned oxygen from the Bokaro steel plant and the Jamnagar refinery in Gujarat. Delhi has asked for movement on rail from the Rourkela steel plant in Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh has asked for oxygen to be transported from Odisha to Vijayawada. The Indian Railways has said that their ramps are ready at different locations in the NCR region and they expect movement to take place shortly. While the hospitals have been sending SOS messages on oxygen shortage, the governments have appealed to the Prime Minister, saying the national capital specifically is headed towards a massive tragedy. There was a meeting that took place between the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and various chief ministers today. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal urged the centre to address the state's oxygen shortage immediately. He said there is a big tragedy that's likely to happen if steps are not taken quickly. To quote the Delhi Chief Minister, he said there are a few states where oxygen is being supplied to Delhi, where most of the problems are being noted. I request you call the Chief Ministers of these states at once and ask them not to stop our oxygen trucks. These people of Delhi need this oxygen. There are 2 crore people in Delhi. I'm requesting you with folded hands to help us. Please help us. End quote. This was the Chief Minister of Delhi to the Prime Minister of the country. Kejriwal's appeal comes at a time when Aam Aadmi Party leaders, including Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia, have accused Haryana and Uttar Pradesh government of blocking their oxygen supply by road. The Prime Minister, in the meantime, has assured help to all of the states in a meeting with Chief Ministers of 10 states and 1 union territory today. On the issue of oxygen supply, Mr. Modi said that continuous effort to increase supply and production is on. He said the railways and the Air Force are being deployed to reduce transportation time for oxygen tankers, and he urged state governments to check for hoarding and black marketing of oxygen and medicines. He said that every state should ensure free movement of oxygen tankers and make sure they do not get stopped or stranded anywhere. Taking a look at what the courts have said on the matter right now, 2 hospitals in Delhi have moved to High Court over their oxygen supply, and the Supreme Court has taken suo motu cognizance of cases in various high courts. And like we told you yesterday, various senior advocates of the Supreme Court criticized that move. The Supreme Court today questioned those senior advocates for their criticism, saying that the court had never said that cases were being taken over. The court questioned senior advocates, including Dishad Dave, saying that you have imputed motives to us without reading our order. The court has said that it did not ask for a transfer of COVID cases to itself. We never said a word and did not stop the high courts. We asked the centre to go to the high courts and report to them. End quote. The court also allowed senior advocate Harish Salve to withdraw as amicus curiae for the suo motu case related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, just to remind you, the Supreme Court had taken suo motu cognizance, which basically means no one has brought the matter before the court. It has just decided it's important enough to take a look at it. The court also appointed Harish Salve as amicus curiae. Now, this means friend of court, literally, but it is an advocate appointed by the court to argue the case. Now, Salve asked for permission to recuse himself from this position, saying that his friendship with outgoing Chief Justice of India from school and college was being seen as a conflict of interest. The court has allowed Harish Salve to withdraw himself as amicus curiae. The court has also decided to adjourn the suo motu case concerning issues arising out of the COVID pandemic and the management of the crisis unfolding in various states, which is a very urgent matter, to next week. It will hear the matter on Tuesday. Meanwhile, hearing petitions from hospitals who have approached the Delhi High Court to provide them with oxygen, the High Court has asked hospitals to contact the nodal officers of the Delhi government for their requirements. The court have asked the Delhi government to circulate numbers where COVID-19 hospitals can directly contact the government. The High Court has also suggested that the government should appoint another officer along with the nodal officer so that one person is not overwhelmed. In Maharashtra, at least 13 COVID patients who were in ICU died in a fire in the Vijay Villabh Hospital in Maharashtra's Virar, 70 kilometers from Mumbai. The CEO of the hospital said 90 patients were admitted at the time of the incident. In a statement, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Uddhav Thackeray's office, has said that the Chief Minister has directed that other patients undergoing treatment should not be harmed and should be relocated immediately. The CM has also spoken with the concerned officials and asked them to give priority to extinguishing the fire and ensuring treatment of the other patients continue. This is what the official statement said. This comes at a time when Maharashtra is seeing a daily COVID surge of over 65,000 cases, making it the worst affected in the country. Meanwhile, India has reported 332,730 new cases, the highest single-day 24-hour surge so far. The government had recently announced that from the 1st of May, everyone above the age of 18 will be eligible for vaccination across the country. Registrations for the same will begin on the 28th of April on the Cowin platform and the Arogya Setu app. According to the new vaccine rules, states can directly buy vaccines from manufacturers. The Karnataka government on Thursday has said that it will approve the purchase of 1 crore doses of Covishield vaccines at 400 rupees a dose to vaccinate people above the age of 18, from 18 to 45. Meanwhile, 8 states in the country have said that free vaccines will be available to everyone above the age of 18. This is Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Goa, Assam and Sikkim. Reliance Industries has announced a decision to vaccinate all of its employees and all of their family members above the age of 18 starting the 1st of May as part of its Our Suraksha drive. In a letter, it said Reliance Foundation continues to be on the ground addressing humanitarian challenges and is distributing 5.5 crore meals and 67 lakh masks to those in need. It has urged its employees to come forward and get vaccinated and stay updated with all of the latest information. Pharma company Zydus Cadila has gotten approval from the Drug Controller General of India, the DGCI, to use its antiviral Virafin for treatment against coronavirus, but for mild cases. The pharma company has said a single dose of the antiviral administered subcutaneously early on shows effective clinical and virological improvement in patients with moderate coronavirus. The company has stated that 91.15% of the patients who were treated with this drug were RT-PCR negative by day 7. In other news, while the healthcare crisis rages on, the central government has invited tenders for 3 buildings as part of its Central Vista project. The centre's project of constructing a new common secretariat for its ministries was initiated this week by the Central Public Works Department, inviting bids for 3 buildings which will cost 3,408 crore rupees. The CPWD invited technical bids for a 2-stage tender process to construct buildings on a plot that currently houses the Indira Gandhi National Centre for Arts, which has been relocated to a new campus. The estimated construction work would cost 3,269 crore rupees and 139 crore rupees in maintenance over 5 years, raising questions about the centre's continued need to prioritize this project over the healthcare crisis that currently rages in the country. CBSE has released new assessment and evaluation criteria for classes 9 to 12 in the new academic session of 2021-22. The board announced that from this year onward, the board would now be including a competency-based questions that would be 30% of the marking of classes 9 and 10 and 20% of the marking of classes 11 and 12. And apparently these questions would be application concepts in real life or unfamiliar situations that will be part of the question paper. This is what the notification by the board read. Also, Chief Justice of India, S.A. Bobde, retired today after serving as a judge for 22 years. Justice N.V. Ramana will succeed him as Chief Justice. He takes the oath on Saturday. Chief Justice Bobde said in the 22 years as a judge, he has tried his best. He leaves the court with happiness, goodwill, and very fond memories of wonderful arguments, excellent presentation, good behavior, and commitment to the cause of justice. Remember, he has presided over various important issues, including dismissing 18 review petitions filed against the Ayodhya verdict, dealing with review petitions filed against the Sabarimala judgment. He's also dealt with the farmer protest and, of course, the entire COVID crisis of last year and of this year until today. Looking now at news coming in from the world of business. The Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority that regulates insurance companies has clarified that network hospitals must facilitate cashless insurance claims of COVID patients if they already have an insurance policy. Now, this comes after the Finance Minister expressed concerns over some hospitals denying cashless insurance to COVID patients and asked the IRDA to act immediately. March 20th, COVID-19 was included as part of the comprehensive health insurance, and all hospitals and insurance companies were instructed last year to provide this cover. Looking now at news coming in from across the world, Canada has suspended flights from India and Pakistan for the next 30 days due to the surge of COVID cases in both of these countries. The Transportation Minister told the press that this is a temporary measure and they will assess the evolving situation as time goes forward. Meanwhile, at least 9 different countries have issued travel restrictions for India. This includes the United States, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, France, Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and Oman. In Russia, the police have arrested over 1,700 protesters from across the country on Wednesday who were protesting in rallies organized by allies of the hunger-striking Putin critic Alexei Navalny over his failing health in jail. Now, Navalny has been on a hunger strike for 3 weeks and there are concerns about his health at this point. Protesters in Moscow joined his wife when they chanted "Freedom for Navalny, let the doctors in." According to Reuters, the 24-year-old critic of the Putin administration, who last year survived a nerve agent attack, which the Russian authorities have denied carrying out, is thin and weak after starving himself for 3 weeks. His allies say he risks kidney failure and cardiac arrest. The United States has warned Russia that it will face consequences if he dies in jail. In other news, at least one climber has tested positive on Mount Everest after Everest was opened a year after it was closed to climbers. Norwegian climber Erlend Ness told the BBC that he was isolated in a hospital for 8 nights due to the virus. He was unsure of whether he would have caught the virus, but suspects that he got it in a tea house in the Khumbu Valley. On to news from the world of science and technology. NASA and SpaceX have launched a new 4-astronaut team in a flight to the International Space Station. This is the first crew that will use a rocket that is recycled from a previous space flight. The mission is the second operational space station team to be launched by NASA in almost a year, following the 9-year halt at the end of the US Space Shuttle program back in 2011. Quick look at the news from sports right now. India's women boxers created history at the Youth World Championships in Poland, bagging 7 gold medals. With this, India's women boxers have bettered their best ever haul of 5 medals, which was achieved back in 2017 in Guwahati. And a bit of positive news before we end for the day. Ravi Agarwal, an auto driver in Ranchi, has been providing free rides to anyone who needs to go to the hospital in the middle of the ongoing pandemic. Speaking to ANI, Ravi said last Thursday a sick passenger wanted to go to the the Rajendra Institute of Medical Sciences, but no auto driver was willing to take her because the auto drivers were afraid of the virus. He took the passenger, and since then he's been ferrying passengers to hospitals free of cost. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Remember to stay at home, stay safe, and also sort of protect yourself from the distress of all of the news that's coming in. Remember to share this video with anybody else who might find the news helpful. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. The source articles of all of the news that was read out in this bulletin is in the description of our YouTube video if you want to read more about any of these stories. Thank you for watching. Good night.